everybody. Thanks for joining us. Some wild stuff that happened last night. Josh Schiffer, attorney from Georgia, is supposed to join us today, but he's very busy. So I'm going to start this show off and keep us on schedule because we want to make sure that everybody wants to get to their court appointed rooms later on because there's lots of stuff happening in regards to the true crime world. So just to start off, I want to cover a couple of cases. Luigi Mangione, and of course, we'll talk about what happened last night out of Long Island with the Peaches case, with the arrest of Andrew Dykes, Brian Walsh. I don't know if you saw the snarky little thumbprint that I made there in regards to, Wile E. Coyote. It's just absolutely insane what's happening in that case. And yes, some of you guys are just joining us in there. So on a personal note, yes, the wife had an excellent doctor's appointment yesterday. So that kind of frees me up for some things. January, we're going to be start seeing a lot more of me. We're going to be doing some more roll calls. We're going to be doing some more shows at night and a couple of other things that are going on. I'm launching an audio podcast version of the show, which will be it will be all new stuff too. So let's jump into some of these cases. I don't know if you heard about this Robert Howard guy. Robert Howard is a former police officer from Memphis Police Department. And why am I talking about this case? Well, he was just convicted yesterday or the other day for kidnapping and murder while on duty. This guy was working as a patrol officer and kidnapped and murdered this guy. I mean, I don't even remember even hearing about that case on the news. It's absolutely insane. There was a similar case, but I can remember maybe 30, 40 years ago about a New Orleans police officer. It was actually a female officer who actually killed her partner while on duty. And it's just, it's absolutely insane there. Sinead, thank you for gifting that membership, starting us off on the morning on the right foot there. Thank you very much. So, yeah, so take a look at this guy, Robert Howard. Just Google him, Robert Howard, Memphis Police Department. It's absolutely shocking what he has done. So while we're waiting for Josh, we're going to get back into this Luigi Mangione case. If you don't know about Luigi Mangione, we know that he has been under arrest for the murder of an executive of United Healthcare. This happened a little while back, and we have three suppression hearings in New York. So you guys know I like quizzes, and some of you have been falling behind, so you better go to those posts and start doing those quizzes. But there are three suppression hearings that we're going through in New York, and these are going to be testable. Let's put it that way. So we have a Huntley hearing, we have a MAP hearing, and we have a Mosley hearing going on. Now, the Mosley hearing is about the non-eyewitness citizen, so to speak, but this has to do with the police. Can they make a good eyewitness in the case? That has to be a separate suppression hearing in New York State. So that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing the Huntley and the MAP hearing happening at the same time, and then we're going to have this Mosley hearing. So these suppression hearings are going to go on for a number of days. Now, what is a Huntley hearing? It is to determine if the defendant's confession was voluntary or not. And it is important to understand that this case kind of hinges on some of that evidence that the cops in Altoona, Pennsylvania found. And that's what we're talking about. Because they're going federal with this, everything is taken back to New York. And this Huntley hearing is going to be very important because if you recall, there's a 911 call into the McDonald's. And then when you have the McDonald's person call up and say that, they believe it's the guy, the cops show up. The cop starts asking questions. And this is where people are getting really crazy and they're saying, oh no, throw out the evidence, this and that. Okay. The police are allowed to do a preliminary investigation where they ask questions. That's what cops do. They ask questions. And people say, no, he was under arrest. No, he wasn't under arrest. He was sitting at a table in McDonald's. As a matter of fact, he had a mask on. The cops didn't even know who he was. He also then presented a fake ID, which then furthers the issue that the cops didn't know who he was and asking further probing questions about what he was doing there and what was going on. So to me, right now, the cops there, because they said, well, they didn't read a Miranda. Okay, folks, Miranda is a math formula. You have to have interrogation plus custody in order to get Miranda. Now, unfortunately, many people are a victim of television, where as soon as the cuffs go on, they have the cop, he pulls out the little card and the piece of paper and he starts reading the Miranda, right? You have the right to remain silent, you have the right to return. If you can have a full one, we'll find, whatever one we can find for you. Yeah, that only happens in Hollywood, okay? That doesn't happen in the real world. And every state even has even little nuances about what's going on in New York. Has some serious issues when it comes to Miranda. They are very, for a lack of a better adjective, liberal in regards to how the police interview people and do stuff. In Pennsylvania, I'm not so familiar with that because I didn't work as a cop in Pennsylvania. But still, I haven't seen any of those the body cam videos that would suggest that the cops uh, questioned him without proper notification of his Miranda. Asking people their name, what you doing here, where you came from, those are not covered under Miranda. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that this suppression hearing for the Huntley hearing it's going to be positive for the prosecutor. They're going to allow his voluntary statements in, and didn't the cops didn't need Miranda. I mean, that's really what the defense's argument here is for the suppression hearing, that the cops should have read him Miranda before asking him questions. As a matter of fact, from the investigative standpoint, we don't want the cops questioning people, nor we want them reading Miranda, because let's just say, for argument's sake, that the cop out there in Altoona read him his Miranda rights and then started asking him these kinds of questions, even though he didn't need to. He now has an absolute right to counsel attached to it, meaning that anything he says there, if he says, he doesn't have to say, I want a lawyer. He has it. He can say it right then and there. I want a lawyer. I'm not talking to you. And what happens, and this has already happened, and there's been decisions, Supreme Court decisions on this, where the uniform cops read Miranda to a suspect. They bring him into the detectives. The detectives don't know that this guy was read Miranda, and they start asking their questions. And then they read him Miranda again, and he says, "Yes, I'll talk to you." After he told the first set of cops he wants a lawyer, everything gets thrown out. So that's why it is. When we train our cops, we train them. You're not questioning people. You're not asking them specific things. You're just doing your preliminary investigation. Do not read Miranda. And that's something for the detectives to do. And that is really an important aspect of it. So I believe that his voluntary statements will be admissible. The second part of the suppression hearings is a map hearing. And map is with two P's. It was actually named after her name was Dole Ray Mapp. Dole Ray Mapp was a woman. She lived in Cleveland at the time. And Don King, if you remember him, he's the boxing promoter. They were searching for a person that firebombed Don King's home, and police in Cleveland had gotten information that led to Dole Ray Mapp's house. And Dole Ray Mapp had quite the reputation in Cleveland at the time. And what happens now? This is like story time. So what happens now is the cops show up at Dole Ray Mapp's door and they say, let us in. We're searching for this suspect in this bombing. And what happens is she calls her lawyer and says, "Listen, the cops are at the door. They said they want to come in." And the lawyer tells Dole Ray Mapp that if they have a warrant, you got to let them in. If they don't have a warrant, don't let them in. So she says to the cops, "You have a warrant?" And the cops say, "Yeah." And they show this piece of paper and they say, "Yes, we have a warrant." And she opened the door a crack, and the cops forced their way in. They grabbed Dole Ray Mapp, they handcuff her, they throw her on the on the sofa. She tries to grab the warrant. She actually, I believe it, she shoves it down her blouse. The cops go in and get it, and they lock her up. Now, here's the question for everybody: if the police are searching for an individual, where can they search? And the answer is what we refer to as the elephant in the ashtray. That means If I'm looking for an elephant, I can't look in a small place for him. So the police then proceed to search the entire residence for a place that could fit a human being. Well, lo and behold, they get into the basement. There's a trunk, the traveling trunk, and they break open the traveling trunk and they find pornography. And at the time in Cleveland in 1966, I think this happened, the possession of this kind of material was illegal. So they charge her with that as plain view doctrine, as they found it during the search. Well, anyway, this thing goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, no, this is not a good search. The police needed a warrant to get in. And it was based on an older decision of Weeks versus the United States, which was like 1913. Anyway, I know I'm kind of rambling here, but I think it's kind of interesting little tidbit in history because we're actually seeing this play out now in a New York courtroom. So the question at hand here at the defense is, did the police obtain the firearm that was found that was used to kill this CEO and his manifesto that was in a knapsack? Was that search illegal? And that's where the suppression hearing and this map hearing is going. The defense is saying that the cops should have never searched it. They should have never, and they would have never found it. I, on the other hand, have an entirely different view. And of course, people say, of course, Joe, you were a cop. So you're going to have a different, you're going to side with the cops. No, I always go, I side with the law and what the law tells us what the police can and cannot do. There are several exceptions to the search warrant. And in this case, I think we see a couple of them at play. So let's walk through the scenario. He's sitting in the McDonald's. There's a knapsack to his right. Okay, so we're looking at it this way. It's our left, his right. Inside that knapsack, we find out there's the gun and the manifesto. So the question is, should the cops have searched? Well, here's the deal. When you are arrested, your entire person is searched, including anything on you. So, ladies, your pocketbook and stuff like that. There is a case from California, Kimmel versus California, that said not only can the police search you when you're under arrest, that's search incidental to lawful arrest, but anything in your grabbable area. So, that Supreme Court decision, I believe, is going to play a role in this Luigi Mangione case. You're going to hear Kimmel versus California come up, and it probably might be today. So Kimmel versus California says anything in your lungeable or grabbable area, the police can search. So that knapsack is definitely within his area of reach. So they search it, and lo and behold, they find the firearm and the manifesto. Now, here's the deal. So to me, that was a good search. But here's another little aspect that I think we'll hear the prosecutor say it. Something called inevitable discovery. Let's just say the police didn't search it because they felt that they would need a warrant to search it, which is a stretch as far as I'm concerned. Here is the deal. The police, when they come in contact with somebody and they make an arrest, the police now become responsible for that person and all of their belongings. They have to what they refer to as inventory. And inventory is another exception to the search warrant, where the police are not looking for evidence. They're taking into custody an individual's belongings, and they have to now voucher it. They're going to have to list exactly what they find in it, and then they give a receipt to the person. So to me, inevitable discovery was they would take his knapsack, they're going to open it up, inventory what's inside so it doesn't get lost or stolen, or might find contraband in there. And we don't want these things just laying around. They're not going to leave the guy's stuff in the McDonald's and walk out because then they'll get accused of that. So they would have taken it and they would have found the gun and the manifesto anyway. So I'm going to go out on another limb here and say that the search is going to be okayed too. That the gun and the manifesto are going to stay in this trial as evidence against Luigi. To me, it's as simple as that. Can I be wrong? Of course I can be wrong. I was hoping that Josh would be able to show up so we can do a little defense attorney stuff here, but he got held up. So we're going to just continue going exactly what we're doing here. The last hearing that we're going to talk about, I mentioned it in first, was the Mosley hearing, and this is about eyewitnesses. And this one here is based on surveillance video, and we have a 911 call to say they think this is the guy. I mean, if you saw the picture of him, he had his face covered, he had his hat down. I mean, you could barely see his eyes. So, the McDonald's worker did a great job notifying the police in regards to exactly what was transpiring here, and the police show up, didn't know exactly what's going on. I think that the identification is also going to be admissible in court as well. It's just that's the way it goes. So today's the quiz question is either going to be the map hearing, what it does, the Huntley hearing, or the Mosley hearing. So if you heard this here first at 12 o'clock when my quizzes drop, you will be able to get the answer. Anybody who showed up here or watching on the replay. Now, let's get into last night. Let's just talk about what happened in last night. For those of you, apparently a lot of people found out that video took off last night. So thank you guys again for all of your support, watching these videos and liking them, sharing them, and commenting. Last night's live was impromptu. Did not have any idea what was going to happen, but we kind of broke the news before the major news outlets yesterday. We got some information that there was going to be a major arrest in a Long Island case. Now, we did know who it was, and I had verified the arrest paperwork, but I withheld the information until the official word came out. And some people asked me, like, why did you hold back? Well, listen, you're better off to hold back and have the right information than to put out information that's wrong. That's just I don't want to do that. So that's what I waited for. And then when it came out, we finally we released everything last night. So Laura Ingle, who is on YouTube here on the Ingle Edit. Make sure you're following and subscribing to her. We were talking last night that this arrest was coming out. I got the arrest paperwork from Hillsborough County, so that we confirmed that this guy was under arrest. Now, what happened? So, for those of you that didn't see the live last night, it was short. It was only like 15 minutes. You can check it out later on if you want. However, they arrested a man named Andrew Dykes. And for people who are following the Long Island serial killer case, should know recognize that name as the father of Tatiana Dykes, who was also known as Baby Doe. Now, Baby Doe was the daughter of Tanya Jackson, who was originally known as Peaches. Now, if you recall, just go through that whole case quickly. Peaches was found in a Rubbermaid bin in a place called Hempstead Lake State Park. And this was going back in the 1990s. And her skull was found at Jones Beach. Her skull was actually the furthest west victim of all the victims that were found. Foley, thank you very much for that super sticker. Tanya and baby Tatiana, thank you. Sergius, thank you, Foley, for that super. I appreciate that. And so Peach's skull was found, and Tatiana, her daughter, was found at the furthest east point. So they acted, if you remember, Josh and I were talking about this, they were actually acting as bookends of all the other victims that were found at Gilgo Beach. And the issue that comes down to is we have Nightbot's having issues. Okay, folks, we'll have to worry about Nightbot. I'll try to fix it. Like I said, I just jumped on and I'm not going to try to fix it now, but we'll fix it later. And the issue that comes down to so Peaches and Tatiana fell within the Gilgo group, and everybody, including myself, would say too much of a no such thing as coincidences. This and that. So now they arrested the father, and if you recall, if I recall correctly, when Andrew Dykes was interviewed, I think he was living in Hawaii at the time, or something was going on, something weird like that. But he had said that he was estranged from Tanya and that he hadn't seen her. So to me, this is kind of odd, right? So I'm waiting to see the probable cause affidavit. Uh, According to the arrest document that Hillsborough County put out, they make no mention of a victim. As a matter of fact, they use the singular word murder. There's an arrest warrant out of Nassau County for murder, not murders, not for two, because if you would think there would be a package deal that he would arrest somebody for both Tanya and Tatiana. I'm assuming that's exactly what's going on, but until we hear the official word, until he gets extradited and comes back, I think we're going to hear some wild stuff in that's going to come out of Nassau County Court. I can't say for sure because I don't know. So You know, I guess the logical line is that he's being charged with both murders. That's the logical part of it, but it's not official yet, and we don't know for sure. We can, like I said, we can guess or we can speculate, but until we get the official word, I'm going to avoid doing that. But the issue that you're dealing with here is this kind of convolutes a lot of things too. Uh, I think this is going to be used as fodder for Michael Brown in his case defending Rex Heuermann about things that were going on. And if you recall, when they had the presser happening with the identification of Peaches and Tatiana, I had made mention that it was unusual that a representative of Suffolk County, neither the district attorney nor a representative, was at that location when they were identifying them because they had one of the victims solely to themselves under their jurisdiction, and that was Baby Doe, which they found out his name was Tatiana. So I don't know if there is some political playing back and forth here in regards to both Nassau and Suffolk in regards to these cases, but I think it kind of doesn't make things impossible for the district attorney out in Suffolk County, Ray Tierney, but I think it kind of, you know, is going to give him a bit of a headache now because Michael Brown has got something maybe to sink his teeth into and saying, hey, listen, you guys said it was all Rex, and now we have, an arrest, and we have two of these cases that are there that act as bookends and blah, 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 blah. I think you're going to hear all this coming out of Michael Brown. I just think so. Josh and I are getting together on Sunday. We had a show planned on Mindhunter, which was the book written by John Douglas and about how Rex was using it. We're still going to do that, but we're also going to dive into, of course, a little further into this Peaches thing. Now, extradition is, I believe, is underway. Nassau County has been very quiet. They haven't said anything about the extradition. But for those of you that don't know, extradition goes pretty quick because basically the only thing you can do is try to hold it up and say that I'm not the guy. But let's just look at the possible reasons why this guy was arrested. If it's just DNA, right? Because if you recall, I talked about that Rubbermaid bin, how there's a chance of having DNA in it because the victim was put into it. Maybe there was a hair follicle, maybe, all those other things that go along with it. And that container would be able to hold it and try to find out maybe through the DNA, through the new technology. But they were, I believe they were married, or at least they had a child in common at this point. And yes, if they broke up, but we've seen situations where you're dating somebody for a long time, you break up, and then you get back together again, and things kind of happen, and then you break up and you never see each other again. If that's the case, I think that's what the argument the defense is going to have. But we're not gonna put the cart before the horse. But I'm just trying to figure out how they came to this conclusion because in the arrest paperwork, in the warrant paperwork, it specifically says that he fled the jurisdiction to avoid arrest. I mean, we're talking about 28 years ago. So they're saying that, after these murders, he left Long Island and went elsewhere at this point. I mean, is that what they're calling the fleeing part? I don't know. I don't know exactly how they are going to handle that. So hopefully by Sunday, we'll have a little more information. Josh and I are working the phones and trying to get as much information as we can. And we're trying to be, you try to be right. We're going to make mistakes, but I can tell you something, folks. If you've been following me for any length of time, I've been predicting that this case was going to break. Not in the way that it broke, but still in that respect. So it's actually kind of wild. So if you're just joining us now, we just got a whole bunch of new people in the room. We are going through some of the major cases that we were just talking about, the wild arrest out of Long Island in regards to connections to two victims out of the Gilgo cases. Tina, thank you very much for gifting those 5 memberships to the channel. I really appreciate that. And this channel grows. I'm saying January we got a whole new stuff going on. I've actually started a Reddit page too. So for those of you that are involved in Reddit, I'm trying to get some conversations going on over there. There's going to be a newsletter, a monthly newsletter I'm launching. If you're interested in that, it's going to happen in 2026. If you go to my website, josephjackalone.com, there's a link on the bottom. You can add your email. I'm not selling emails. I'm not doing any of that stuff. It's just going to be a newsletter, and I'm going to help promote other channels that we watch. So, like Gizela's, uh, Josh's Sinister, and all these other things. If there's really good videos, I'm going to add them onto the newsletter, and I'm going to send it out to everybody. So, if you miss something on somebody else's channel or on my channel, you'll be able to catch up on a monthly newsletter. It's going to come once in your email, and that's going to be that it. So yes, Sinead, we are closing in on 20,000 subscribers too. So that would be another nice milestone. So we're gonna try to get there by hook or by crook, so to speak. Okay, so the next case I want to get into is this Brian Walsh. If you don't know who Brian Walsh is, he's the one that is accused of murdering his wife, Anna Walsh, up in Massachusetts. And the same characters that were involved in the Karen Reed case are involved in this one. And the big deal, the big thing in this case was that Michael Proctor was the lead investigator, and everybody thought that this case was all going to go to hell because of that, including myself. I mean, in regards to that, this was going to be a huge obstacle for the prosecution because anything that Michael Proctor touches is like the anti-Midas touch, right? Anything he's involved with is going to be a really bad scene in so many different aspects. But then, like 2 weeks ago, Brian Walsh made this really weird move, as far as I'm concerned. He pled guilty to two different charges out of the three he faced. He pled guilty to the unlawful disposal of a body and the impeding investigation, which I thought was strange. And if you guys saw the roll call I did with Franz Bogart from from New Orleans, from Baton Rouge, New Orleans, he's a lawyer from down there. You see him on court TV all the time, and that's where I met him. He came on the show and we discussed the case and we discussed the actual strategy, and he actually nailed the strategy right there and there on the show. And basically, he was going to say that he was going to say, well, this was an accidental death, and then he's going to try to do it, but basically, good luck with that. And I had brought up then, is yeah, if you look at those Google searches that he's been doing, it's going to be very difficult. I wouldn't want to be his prosecutor. Excuse me, I wouldn't want to be his defense attorney trying to overcome that. Well, lo and behold, here we are, right? So we're into this case now. It's been a couple of days, and I'll tell you, just my personal opinion, it's not looking good for the defense. All right. The defense of, well, I, she died unexpectedly and I panicked. Okay, that happens. We've seen this happen. I panicked and I disposed of the body. But I don't cut up the body. I don't do the Google searches. I'm going to read you some of these Google searches if you haven't heard them. To me, this is like right out of Wile E. Coyote super genius stuff, right? Like, if you don't know who Wile Coyote is, he orders everything from the Acme company. Well, Brian Walsh ordered everything from Google company in regards to this stuff. And he uses his son's iPad to boot. Now, oh boy, let's take a look at some of these searches. How long before a body starts to smell? Can identification be made on partial human remains? Can I use bleach to clean my wood floors from bloodstains? What does bleach do to dead bodies? Uh, can you identify a body through broken teeth? How do you saw a body? Can a body decompose in a plastic bag? Can police get search history without your computer? Yeah, Brian, it's called the cloud. And you know what? You search Google, you're not searching on your computer, you're searching on their servers. So this is just something that I'm like, if I'm the defense attorney and I see this stuff, I'm like, are you kidding me with this? I'm sorry, folks. I don't think he has a legal leg to stand on in regards to the murder charge. Like I said, I could be wrong. We'll find out soon enough. But I don't think the jury is going to buy that he panicked and he did all of these searches and he went for all these things and then went to different dump sites with the body. And, he's looking for, well, I think he was looking for life insurance too, trying to find out about that. So, good grief. And she's having an affair apparently because yesterday's show, excuse me, yesterday's part of the trial, he called up her boyfriend is asking her, "Hey, have you seen Anna?" This case is like, is absolutely bizarre in so many different ways. I mean, this woman left. It was New Year's Day. She was taking a plane, never made it there. All the different aspects about what you know. Oh yeah, and Becky B says, "What about his mama?" S- Yeah, his mother. She's another person that of course, the reporters are chasing her as she's leaving. And okay, so there's no life insurance policy. Thank you for fact checking that, Amy. So there's lots of different things that are going on out here. Brian Walsh had actually a company where they train others in cybersecurity. Oh, really? Make sure I never hire them for anything, for good's sake, God's sake. Uh, oof. So yeah, so Brian Walsh, I think, is up a creek without a paddle, so to speak. I'm assuming that this thing is going to end today in regards to the prosecution resting on this. But the same detective who was doing the searches, whatever, we saw him from Karen Reed trial too. Much different presentations I was seeing in here. So maybe something good came out of the Karen Reed trial. Like maybe the cops are getting on board on how to do some of these proper investigations, and what are some of the things that you could happen to you in court if you don't. I think maybe that could be a positive that came out of there, because there was so many negatives. As a matter of fact, I hope we never have to talk about that case ever again. Uh, and then hold on a second. I got some. Oh, and then the Google search, as I said, happened on his, I think, 10-year-old son's iPad, right? So I don't know if that's the sign of a man who is panicking in respect, or more a man that was thinking way ahead of what he had done, and how he was going to prepare for it. There's another little interesting thing that happened during the live yesterday, and our buddy Jay Jay Bronius, Jabo. After the break, one of the times, Brian Walsh sits down at his desk, the desk wherever that was overlooking the court, and he finds a paperclip, and he has the paperclip, and he's actually trying to do the right thing, like he's trying to give it to the bailiff, and and he kind of like he doesn't nobody everyone's ignoring him, but folks, that's a huge problem. I know Jay made a big joke out of it, but from the law enforcement perspective, that paperclip can open up handcuffs. It could open up a lot. I mean, that is bad. So, Jay, good call on that one there, in regards to seeing that happen. I didn't notice that. I think a lot of people did not um, anticipate something like that happening on the trial there. So it is. It's pretty wild. So, folks, listen, I am so glad that you were able to join me this morning. If you're those of you that are just coming in, we're going through some of the cases, some of the breaking news from last night. If you just joined us, uh, coming in January 26th, I had announced we're doing some other things. And for those of you that came in late, so my wife had a doctor's visit yesterday, and everything went well. So we're all excited in that respect. So starting in January 2026, you'll see a lot more of me. I'll be doing a lot more roll calls, and I'll be doing some solo stuff in regards to exactly what, like we did this morning. So I'll be doing some solo roll calls and some other things. I don't know if I'll ever get as good as Gizla and Grizzly True Crime, but we're going to do some breakdowns of some cases and that kind of stuff. I'll have to ask her for some help in regards to that. But yes, we're going to launch a whole new thing. We're going to get us to 20,000 subscribers. So pass the word around. And guys, you got to do those quizzes. You guys are falling behind. I'm gonna have to start cracking the whip around here. So yeah, we were doing 1,000 a day, and we dropped down after the holiday to like 500 or 600. I guess all our bellies were full. But you got to get back on there and do these quizzes. So today's quiz, remember, is either going to be a map hearing question, Huntley hearing, or a Mosley hearing question. Actually, I'll probably ask you one question today and one question tomorrow. So that is something to deal with. So this Sunday, I will have Josh Zeman on. We're going to get into, like I said, Mindhunter, the book, based on the searches that and the documents that Rex Heuermann had created. We're going to get into that. We're also going to get into Peaches. Maybe we'll learn a little bit more. I think we're going to find out officially what's going on in the case on Monday or Tuesday, but we'll see what happens. We already had that scheduled. On Monday, I have a very interesting guest, Andrea Giovino. She is actually was an associate of John Gotti. She wrote the book Divorced from the Mob. She's going to join us. She's going to get into the Gambino crime family, all the different aspects that happened to her, the witness protection program, and all the other things that go along with it. So, Andrea is going to join us at 6 p.m. on Monday night. So, you can see we're already starting to do shows on some different days of the week and some different nights. So, that's going to be the plan moving forward. And I want to thank you guys for supporting the channel by watching and showing up and liking, and that's all we need over here. That's great. And for those of you that have donated so generously, I also really appreciate it. Coming in January, we're going to do something interesting with Josh and I. We're going to pick a case that Othram's working on or another lab is working on, and we're going to try to crowdfund it. So we're going to give you guys another homework assignment soon where you're going to go. We're going to pick a case. We're going to bring it apart. We're going to discuss the case, and then we're going to see if we can get it crowdfunded so we can get the DNA tested done by the lab so that we can try to identify somebody or help the police actually, solve the case in that respect. Sinead, thank you very much for your support there. So yes, so that's some to look forward to some exciting stuff. Make sure you're following Josh on there on the Sinister Pod, Laura Ingle at the Ingle Edit, and they are both friends of mine, and we also all collaborate and share information, and we do all these different things together, and it's a lot of fun when we all work together. There's plenty of room for everybody. Some people don't feel that way on this YouTube stuff, but that's fine. We don't really care. Uh, the idea. So thank Mary. So Mary says, hang on a second. Let me pull it up. Wrong one. Mary says, what a great idea to crowdfund for the DNA analysis. Love it. Yeah. So what we want to do, Mary, is we're going to probably pull out a couple of cases and we're going to leave it up to you guys in the community to say which one we want us to cover. And then Josh and I are going to do the research. We're going to put together a show on that case. And then we are going to present that case, and then we're going to submit the links to where for the crowdfunding, so to speak. No money is going to come to us. We want 100% of the money to go to whatever lab is whatever case we choose and whatever lab is attached to it, so that we can actually try to do something good with our reach and our in our part of on our channels. And that's basically what is going to happen come January. So I said, folks, buckle up because January, we're going to kick this thing off. I'm going to try to see if we could do something actually either on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. Have a show and do that kind of stuff too. So stay tuned. I saw we just had a Dev, a new member. Thank you very much, Dev, for joining there. One of the Golden Girls, I think, is on her thing there. So, yes, lots of exciting stuff for 2026. Thanks for joining us this morning, guys. There'll be additional roll calls coming forward, and I'll be like this 35, 40 minutes. And it'll be either solo. Like I said, we try to get a guest on for you here, but you're going to see a lot more of me. So just be mindful of that. So prepare yourself. Make sure you have your coffee before you do so. You guys have a great day. Hope to see you on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Josh and I will be discussing a lot of stuff in revolving around Gilgo. And then, of course, Monday at 6 p.m. with Andrea Giovino. Thank you guys for hanging out, and we will talk soon. Have a great day. Bye now.